So yesterday was Halloween. I know that some of us celebrate it in different ways. Some of us don't. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule other than I would say we should probably exercise caution about it because let's face it, it is kind of based in the macabre and the occult in many ways, and we can observe that in ways that, if we can, don't delve into that and spooky stuff, and that we keep our eyes fixed firmly on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Think about when I was a kid and I would trick or treat and get my candy, and I had a system. You know, some kids just pour it all out, right? And they just kind of pig out on it. And I had sort of a rationing system, and I had an organizational system. And I had the chocolates, the basically chocolates. I had the basically fruity sweetie, and then I had the basically kind of nut things. And I tried to kind of go through each pile, and keep them steady. You know, I didn't want to pig out on the chocolate and leave myself only because that was my favorite. And in general, I can be a very organized person if I'm not overwhelmed. If I've got more than I feel I can deal with, I tend to get a little overwhelmed and messy. But if I have what I can control, I have a tendency to actually be very organized. And that was one of those times when that came through. And separating those different pieces of chocolate and rationing and wanting to go through it slowly and making it last. And so for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to do a little series here called God and I, and kind of return back to the basics of who God is and who we are in light of that. And so I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 1 today, which should be easy to find. It's the first chapter in the Bible. And this idea of it's kind of in our human making to separate and divide and organize. Now, in these times, we have seen how division can be a bad thing, how separation can be a bad thing, how defining ourselves as other than other people can be a tricky thing. It can be a harmful thing, especially when we think I'm this and you are that, and when we insult those who disagree with us and characterize them as, oh, those whack jobs, or either way, 4 years ago, one of the candidates referred to the supporters of their opponent as a basket of deplorables. All right, and that might have cost that person the election. And so when we divide ourselves and say, you're with me, you're good, you're not with me, you're bad, then we have sort of perverted the good of being organized. Perverted the good of creating and ruling over and having dominion over our world. And so we're going to look at the character of God as expressed in Genesis chapter 1 and a little bit chapter 2, and what he has entrusted to people, and how we are to reflect that character of God. All right, so this should sound pretty familiar, and I'm just going to go step by step through it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was over the face of the waters. So first we have a declarative statement in this translation. God created the heavens and the earth. God created. The heavens and the earth are there because God put them there. He did this in the beginning, all right, which is just a sort of way of this people's history, going back and saying this is what happened at the beginning. This is before anybody was there. This is how it all happened. Different cultures, especially ancient cultures, have different stories of origin and how the world and our universe came into being. And some of them are very interesting. Some of them are graphic and almost pornographic. If you look at the origin and universe creation stories of some of the ancient cultures. But the Jewish culture and the people of God simply said, in the beginning, God created. That's it. God created, God made, God fashioned the heavens and the earth. So two different things, two different distinct things. The heavens and the earth. All right? And throughout the scriptures, we see the heavens and the earth as separate and distinct. And we are told, fix your mind on things, in Colossians, fix your mind on heavenly things and not on things on earth. Fix your mind on heavenly things and not on things of earth. Distinct. It says the earth was without form and void. I believe the King James says formless and void. These are interesting, two very interesting words that get to the heart of what we're saying God did here in chapter 1 of Genesis. The earth was formless and void. Different ways to translate that, but I would like to use something like chaotic instead of formless. Chaotic, disorganized, disordered, without order. Isaiah, in his 34th chapter of his prophecy, uses this very same combination of words. It's the only other place where this particular combination of words is used uniquely. He's pronouncing judgment on Edom, the people of Edom, and he says, he shall stretch the line of confusion over it and the plumb line of emptiness. That's how those two words are translated in Isaiah. Confusion, chaos, and emptiness. So there's no order, there's no organization, it's chaos, and it's empty. There's nothing there. There's nothing to provide. It's emptiness, it's void, it's deserted. And it says darkness was over the face of the deep. So darkness, all right, lack of clarity, lack of information, lack of goodness, all that darkness represents, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And so that hovering is the idea or image of a hen brooding over her chicks and keeping watch over them. So the idea of being poised and watchful and alert and ready for action. And going on, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So God exercising authority in his spoken word, when he says that something should be, it is. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light was good, so he pronounces his own creation good. God separated the light from the darkness. All right? Separated the light from darkness. This is this, that is that. They are not the same thing. They are distinct. So an act of order. He brings light where there was darkness, and he brings order where there was chaos. Called the light day, the darkness he called night. Naming the things that he has created is an act of authority, an act of ownership. When one names something, one is saying that it is mine, and I have authority over it. And there was evening, and there was morning. Two separate and distinct things. Evening and morning, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. The day beginning with the evening, and then ending the next day at sunrise, or at sunset. There was evening and morning, the two parts of the day, the first day. All right, so he brings light on the first day. He divides, begins to organize, begins to fill, begins to provide. In verse 6, God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the heavens, of the waters, expanse in the midst of the waters, let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. All right? So other translations more literally call it a dome, or you may have heard the word firmament. And so the eyes of those who were receiving this at first, over the world it appears that there is some sort of covering, some sort of expanse, some sort of dome. And so God is saying, I'm going to separate, all right? Again, bringing order, bringing organization. Let's have a space between these waters and those waters. All right? And the waters above he called the heavens. And on a blue, clear day, or even on a stormy day, it looks like the waters below. Actually, whatever the waters look like below, that's kind of what the sky looks like, that's kind of what the water looks like. So, because it reflects the light. And so he's saying, we'll separate these, and we'll make it a space in the middle. All right? So he's bringing organization. He's calling the expanse heaven. He is naming it, again, with authority. Separating, organizing, naming, exercising power, authority, bringing organization. There was evening and there was morning the second day. This was the second day, making the expanse in the heavens, separating the waters. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas, and God saw that it was good. More organization, more separation, more distinction. More calling this, and that, that. Those waters up here, that's something, and that the waters down here are something else. The land, that is one thing. The waters are something else. The seas are something else. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth. And it was so, because God said it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their kinds, trees bearing fruit in which is the seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. And so we see God, where there was chaos, he brings order. Where there was emptiness, he now begins to fill and bring fullness. And not only to put things there, but to put things there that will reproduce. All right? And we'll see that this filling of the earth with vegetation and fruit is in preparation for what's to come. Filling the earth with vegetation and fruit. And so he fills the earth. All right? He brings fullness where there was nothing and emptiness. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from separating the day from the night. Again, making distinctions between things, organizing things. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let the lights, there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And so he fills the heavens that he has made and puts lights in them. And it was so. And God made the two great lights. The greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And of course, to our eye, the two great lights are the sun during the day and the moon during the night. Now, our current knowledge, been knowledge for longer than a couple of centuries, is that there are actually greater lights out there, all right, than the sun. The sun is not a particularly awesome star, as awesome as it is compared to other stars. It's just kind of a humdrum star. And there are greater lights if we go out there. But when we're here, standing here, at the center of God's creation, these great lights that are farther away appear small to us because they are so far away. All right, so the great lights in our eyes are the sun and the moon. And God put them there, put them right where they should be, put the other lights exactly where they should be in relation to us, all right, so that they might help us, right? When we see the constellations, we use the stars. Still, we get direction from the stars. We can look in the heavens if we're educated on these things, and we can look in the night sky and tell which direction is which simply by the organization of the stars. People who really know what they're talking about can tell you what day it is if they look at the night sky. And so God put these things in order. All right? He placed them in order to help us, so they might be signs. It doesn't say for whom. Signs for seasons and for days and years. For whom? For whom? Nobody exists yet. For who? Just for him? Well, he's preparing. He's preparing his creation for what's to come. And God set them in the expanses of heaven to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate light from darkness. So he now assigns authority to something other than himself. He grants the sun and the moon authority to rule over day and over the night, so to speak, and to separate again, light from darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. You know, back in the days when this was written, and even to some extent today, in certain parts, it was a radical idea that God created the sun and the moon. Because so many cultures saw the sun and the moon as gods to worship. Or that there were gods of the sun and gods of the moon. And so this is a very strong and bold statement. And this is why we don't worship the sun and the moon, because we worship the God who created those things. That's who God is, the creator of the sun and the moon. You can worship those things if you want, but I'm going to worship the one who created those things. Verse 20, God said, let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures. Here we get really going on day 5. He takes those waters that he separated and organized on day 2 and day 5. He fills them. He fills the waters below with living creatures. All right, birds are flying across the expanse of the skies, so to speak, in the waters above. So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm, all right, bringing life and fullness to the waters that he organized and made, which the waters swam according to their kinds, every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters in the seas, let the birds multiply on the earth. So there was evening and morning the fifth day, and so much like the vegetation, which he simply didn't put there, but created it so that it might multiply and reproduce itself. It says the same things. Let them multiply, be fruitful and multiply. He blessed them. He didn't just make them, he blessed them. Understand, he blessed the birds and the fish. He blessed them and said, Be fruitful and multiply. Day 5. And God said in verse 24, Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds. According to their kinds. Different kinds. Not just one kind, different kinds. Making difference. Livestock, creeping things, beasts of the earth according to their kinds. So he has categories of things. Very organized. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And the livestock according to their kinds. And everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. All right, so now we see there's a purpose for him to have filled the earth with vegetation and fruit. Now he's actually bringing life onto the earth that's going to need something to sustain it. All right? And it says in verse 26, Then God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. So what does that tell us about who we are and what is our purpose then? We are made in the image of God and are to have dominion. And so God has created something like an underboss in us, something like a deputy in us, that we bear his image. We are not God. We bear his image. We're made a little lower than the angels, right? A little bit lower than the angels. But we are in his image. That ability to do as he did. We have beyond, far, far beyond any of the animals, even the higher primates, the ability to organize, the ability to distinguish. I don't know if you ever took biology or earth science or whenever it was that we learned it in school, the taxonomy, all right, of the kingdom, the natural world, the different kingdoms, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, animal, vegetable, mineral. You know, who came up with that? We decided that that's how we were going to name things. Animal, how to categorize things, and that's exercising dominion. And we divided the animals into the different sections, the invertebrates and the vertebrates, all right, fish, mammals, reptiles, amphibians. We decided to organize them according to that, based on what we observed about their creation. And we decided that a whale had more to do with mammals than with fish, even though it had all these things in common with fish, right? It swims in the sea, and it looks like a fish, it acts like a fish, except for it actually bears live young. It doesn't lay eggs, and it breathes oxygen, and doesn't process the water to extract oxygen. So we decided that that makes it a mammal and not a fish, all right? That's what we did in exercising dominion, and in a sense, reflecting the image of God by bringing organization, taking all this chaos of animals and organizing it, and based on organizing principles. And because of those organizing principles, we are able to exercise dominion better. Because, say, if you're a veterinarian or a zoologist, you do your job better when you know if something is a mammal as opposed to a reptile as opposed to an amphibian. It's one of the first things you need to know. All right? And so we exercise that dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the heaven, the livestock, all the earth, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Male and female. Now look at this whole male and female thing. And it says that God did actually create two categories of people. Male and female. Doesn't say one's better than the other, or one's less than the other, or one's more important. It says he made them male and female. And we know when Noah put all the animals in the ark, it specifically says he took them male and female. All right? And Jesus himself reiterated this. It says in Matthew chapter 19, the Pharisees came up to him and tested him by asking, is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause? And he answered, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. And so male and female God created them. Two things. This is this, that is that. Light is light, dark is dark. Land is land, sea is sea, male is male, female is female. Two things that a person can be. And God decides which of those things that person is. And it says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens, over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every plant. See, he had a plan all along. I have given you every plant yielding seed for your food. I've given every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and you shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, every bird of the heavens, and everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has life, the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the 6th day. So God created, he brought organization and order where there was chaos. He brought fullness and plenty and provision where there was emptiness. And then, verse chapter 2, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, all the host with them. And on the 7th day, God finished his work that he had done. He rested on the 7th day from all his work that he has done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. And I could preach several other sermons on all the ways that we have taken our job of having dominion, all right, of subduing the earth, and we have overdone it. And we have strayed from the ways of God, and we have done it in ways that dishonor God and reflect not his glory or his purposes or his grace or his goodness, but our own greed and our own desires and our own sin and our own jealousy, our own covetousness is what I meant to say. But it is our job, and God gave us the ability in being made in his image to subdue the earth, to have dominion over the earth. And in many ways we have done a great job of that, right? In organizing and understanding and studying the natural world and creating categories to put things into so we can understand them better. But in the same way, we do harm to his creation in many ways because of our greed. And the earth, as we know it, is really sort of crying out now. You know, back in the Old Testament, when God gave the promised land to the people, he commanded them, look, you have to take the Sabbath day. 1 day in 7, you don't work. Look at my pattern. On the 7th day, God rested. He established a pattern. And every 7 days, you take a day off and you don't work. All right? You just trust me for that day. All right? The day before, you gather enough for 2 days and you don't work that day. And every 7th year, you let the land go fallow. Every 7th year, you let the land just go fallow. And trust me, you're going to have enough. All right? But give the land its rest every 7th year. And every 7 times 7 years, you forgive all debts and reset everything. Trust me in this. And so we don't give the land its rest. We don't care for the land the way we should. We exploit the land. And we take more from it than it can renew in itself. And so that's not how God intended things. But he did give us that priority. So this is the way God intended it to be. And we'll look at why it's not the way God intended it to be. But we saw that it is good because God did it. God separates it. This is this, that is that. I want to separate things into categories. The question is, how do we see ourselves and how do we identify ourselves? How do we say what category we fit into? What are some of the ways that we do it for people? We talk about race, right? We talk about religion. We talk about Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus liberal. We divide ourselves along these lines. We talk about worker and employer, right? We talk about the managers and the employees. We divide ourselves into these different things and say this is this, that is that. And many times I find in my jobs in the past, the job I have now, I'm expected to act in such a way because I'm boss, right? I belong to that group of people that's kind of boss. And then there's labor over here. And I'm expected to treat labor a certain way. And expect to act this way as someone who's a boss. And so there's that separation, between the salaried and the hourly. And there's all these kinds of ways that we separate ourselves. But listen to what Paul wrote in Galatians chapter 3. Now he's talking about the fact that the work of Jesus Christ has overturned the law. And so therefore what? He said, before faith came, we were held captive under the law, imprisoned until the coming faith would be revealed. So then, the law was our guardian until Christ came, in order that we might be justified by faith. Okay. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a guardian, for in Christ Jesus, you are all sons of God through faith. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you all are one in Jesus Christ. And if you are Christ, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to promise. So what is he saying there? Certainly Paul recognizes that there are Jews and there are Gentiles, and there's a difference there. Certainly he realizes that there are slaves and freedmen, and there's a difference there. Certainly he realizes there are male and female. In fact, he goes to great lengths to talk about this is what a male should be and this is what a female should be. But he says there is neither of those things because you are all one in Jesus Christ. In other words, the difference that puts us into the category of followers of Jesus Christ, the fact that we are born again through faith in Jesus Christ and cleansed by his blood, because we are believers, because we are Christians, that thing unites us far more than any other category that we could belong to. That unites us far more than anything that could divide us. And that's what we have in common. That's our basic category. That's our primary category. Not male, not female, not American, not Democrat, Republican. I know there's going to be people here today who are going to vote for different people for president. All right? And that's not what characterizes us. That's a division that's trivial compared to the fact that we are one in Jesus Christ. What does he say? You are all one in Christ Jesus. All right? And so back in the day in the Old Testament, Jew and Gentile, the people of God, he told them, Ezra especially, was the book of Ezra, separate yourselves from the nations. Be separate unto me. Be holy unto me. Right? Be separate. Because you are my people, and the nations are the nations. In the same way, we are God's people. That's the main thing that defines us as people now. Not where we live, not whether we're male or female, not how we vote, not what we do for a living. The fact that we are in Jesus. And so remember, that's who we are. That's our primary identity. We are in Christ. And so we saw the way that God had separated things. He brought order where there was chaos, and he brought fullness where there was emptiness. And so we are to go through life and do that. We are to bring about order, bring about peace. We are to be a blessing to others. We are to bring fullness into the world and be fruitful and multiply. But understand that the category that we belong to, first and foremost, is children of God, follower of Jesus Christ. And may we go and may people see first and foremost and think first and foremost of us, you know what? Something's different about that person. And not, okay, they're female, they're a male, they're white, they're black, they're Hispanic, whatever, but that they are a follower of Jesus. That should be the one thing, the first thing that people know about us, the first thing that typifies us